As I read the book of 1 Peter, I notice he makes a strong case for living all out for God. He says in the 2nd chapter, verse 11, "Dear friends, I warn you, as temporary residents and foreigners, to keep away from worldly desires that wage against your very souls." Now, believers are temporary residents in a world that is not our home. Our true home is heaven. Christians are exiles and aliens. Since we're not of this world, we should never behave like earth people, but rather as heaven people. We live above sin, and we live to do God's will. We stay away from questionable places and practices. We are to wage war against the things that wage war against our souls. We make sure that at all times that we are in the world, but never of the world. Now, Peter goes on to say in verse 12, "Be careful to live properly among your unbelieving neighbors. Then, even if they accuse you of doing wrong, they will see your honorable behavior, and they'll give honor to God when He judges the world." Our godly lifestyle should be clearly evidenced by all unbelievers. That way, if they accuse you of doing wrong, your right behavior will ultimately win out by showing unbelievers that you desire to honor God in all things. Now, I have been wrongly accused. I'll never forget being accused on Facebook of compromising my standards by going into a liquor store. I made one trip to a liquor store when I was 27 years old. A godly man, by the way, named Lawrence Wilkie, took me into a liquor store in an attempt to sell a church bond, of all things, to the owner for a new church we were building in Liberal, Kansas. He felt like the devil's money was good as anybody's money. But being accused of going into a liquor store in Muskogee was a lie. I decided my testimony went out, and it did. By the way, perhaps we ought to be accused of going into liquor stores as we attempt to win people to Christ. Christians must exhibit a godly lifestyle because it's the right thing to do. But there's another important reason. Christians must exhibit a godly lifestyle because a godly lifestyle can be attractive to unbelievers. When an unbeliever compares a non-Christian family with a Christian family, they should want what the Christian family possesses. The evidence for the believer should encourage the unbeliever to accept Christ. Serving Jesus remains the best alternative in this life and in the life to come. May our godly lifestyles lead people to God and keep them out of hell. Peter believed an attractive godly lifestyle can serve as an important strategy for evangelism, and I believe it'll work today. Every year, John Trent would do his best to round up kids who really needed to hear the gospel when they went to summer camp. Mark was one of those kids that he picked. Bob Mitchell, the main speaker that week, called most of the shots, including when the meals would be served. So Mitch was always talking with the cook. Now, the cook loved her work, but it was exhausting. She always looked tired, and whenever she talked to Mitch, he got up and gave her his chair and a moment's rest while they discussed meal plans. Nobody noticed Mitch doing this except Mark. Mark hadn't come to hear about Jesus, but when he saw that Jesus was lived out in that simple act of kindness by the camp speaker, he began to listen to Mitchell's talks. And later that week, Mark asked Jesus to be his Savior. It wasn't because of the messages, Mark said, but because of the love he saw in Mitch. If that's what it means to be a Christian, Mark said, I want to be one. 1 Peter 2:12, be careful to live properly among your unbelieving neighbors. Then, even if they accuse you of doing wrong, they will see your honorable behavior, and they'll give honor to God when He judges the world. Let's live right, because it's the right thing to do. But never forget this. Let's live right, displaying an attractive lifestyle that makes unbelievers want what we have. Let's win a world to God by living above the world.